Hi, this is Bob Samuels of Tech Connector. We're a best-of-breed lead generation solution for B2B tech marketers. I'm happy to be co-hosting today special Candid with Bob and Kimberly podcast on joyful-led growth. It's a great topic. We have a terrific panel of sharp marketers joining us today. It should be entertaining, joyful, and educational. That said, Kimberly, if you can start things off by introducing yourself and your background, and then have our esteemed panelists do the same.
Happy to do that. Hello, welcome everyone. I'm Kimberly Stevens. I've been in sort of the B2B marketing, sales, customer success space for a long time. Spent 10 years at Adobe, then spent about another 8 years working for a variety of agencies. I've worked with like killer companies, Adobe, Google, Seagate, NVIDIA. I mean, I could go on and on. So having fun along the way, and just got really passionate about this idea of marketing is so complicated, and like simplifying this idea of making sure that you have a joyful culture first and foremost. Your employees feel passionate, empowered, and then making sure you're bringing that forward to your customers as well. So been really passionate about this. I am super stoked on this panel because I have so much respect for, I've worked with Lisa in the past, recently met Lee. I love what she's doing with her company. And Robin, I am just meeting him for the first time. I've just watched him on LinkedIn and so inspired every time he's sharing something. I'm like, we're on the same page. So I'm so excited to have you guys here. Thank you so much. I can't believe I got you all on the same call at the same time. Going to be a great conversation. So with that, I'd love to, I figured I'm going to have each one of you guys introduce yourself, talk a little bit about the work you're doing, who you are, and if you could give me your definition of joyful led growth in that and why you think that's important, that would be great. And let's go with Lee first, Lisa, and then Robin, if that's okay, guys.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for allowing us the pleasure of being here today, and super excited to talk about joyful led growth. I'm Liam, the founder and CEO of a company called Confetti with confetti.com. And we are a platform that helps companies put together really fun team building activities. And we support over 7,000 companies, including the biggest companies in the world: Google, Facebook, Shopify, Spotify, Pinterest, Etsy, name it. As y'all can imagine, Q4 is around the corner. It's going to be busy, but what's going to help people and teams stand out in the rush of that festivity is really good team bonding. And that's where we come in place to make it really simple, very affordable. We have different types of experiences ranging from virtual escape quests to really fun mixology classes. And yeah, I hope people who are listening who need a little bit of help as we enter the holiday season can consider us. But moving on to my definition of joyful led growth, because it resonates with me as a philosophy that really centers on the significance of positivity and purpose and passion in one's own growth journey. And rather than it being just like outcome driven, JLG, which is I think that the condensed version of it, is really like this invitation to immerse oneself in the richness of the experience and just championing the pleasures of learning, of life. And I've always said that like happiness and joy is like really a tough thing to strive for kind of consistently, because it's maybe a little unrealistic, but because we're all going to have crappy moments out there. Hopefully we can use the word crappy on here. But to me, the essence of it is, how can these moments be meaningful? And of course, joy is a great thing to aspire to, but as a team that finds joy in their work is more likely going to be like going the extra mile and generating both tangible and intangible benefits for the organizations. And I think if we can look at work as a canvas to paint on for self-exploration and learning, it's a healthier journey for us all.
Well said. Lisa, you're next.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I can beat that definition of joyful led growth. So I'm going to just double down on what Lee said as far as that goes. But I'll tell you a little bit about my background and why I'm here, and Also, thanks for having me. So Lisa Sharapata, I'm the CMO at a company called the Arbinger Institute. I've been here about a year, and we focus on leadership development and culture transformation. Before that, I was in B2B tech for over a decade. That's where I met Kimberly. And prior to that, I worked in a variety of different industries, actually starting off on the creative side in advertising, marketing agencies. So I've seen quite a bit of culture, quite a bit of different variety of different environments to work in. And I very intentionally said, I want to be someplace where I feel like, the culture is important to that growth. I, was in a growth at all cost environment for a very long time, and felt like it was taking its toll on everyone and wasn't the most effective way to achieve goals. And as a matter of fact, like most of the time we weren't, and people were leaving. And I think COVID really highlighted that for a lot of folks, where they said enough's enough. And we had the great resignation and quiet quitting and all of those trends. And I think that there's, new things we're seeing pop up that are the outcome of that. And but people want to work someplace where they want to innovate, they want to feel safe to speak up, they want to feel like they belong, they want to feel like they're a part of something bigger than them. And it's kind of hit a breaking point for most folks, that they just don't want to be in an environment where it's like crushing their soul every day. So so that would be the opposite of joyful-led growth, which is what we're here about. So yeah, so I'll pass it over to Robin with that.
So soul crushing decline, right? I guess it's the opposite
Right.
of joyful-led growth. First of all,
joy-led, soul crushing, very opposite ends of the spectrum. Yeah.
Thank you, Kimberly, for the warm welcome, and great to meet you, Lisa and Lee and Bob as well. Just a little bit about me. I am from Copenhagen, Denmark. I'm actually here right now. I was born and raised here, but when I was 21, I bought a one-way ticket to California. I'm a nerd. I wanted to be with all the other nerds of the world, so I flew over. I didn't have a job or a place to stay. I didn't know anyone. But this was February 1st, and everybody was hiring, and I had lots of optimism. So I figured I could figure out a way to make it happen. So I applied to every job I could find on Craigslist. And I ended up getting lots of job interviews. And then at the end of 2 weeks, I got 2 job offers from 2 startup companies in Silicon Valley. I ended up taking a job with a company in Los Gatos, if you know what that is, or in the Bay Area. And a month after I got the job in March of 2000, the whole market crashed. And I was like, oh my God, what is going on? So this company did not end up making it. 6 months later, I was out of a job. Then I had to hustle my way to find another job, which I did. This other company I found, 4 months later, I was laid off again because it's a really tough time. The crash was deepening, But when you then zoom out, so in the first year was tough, it was like there was not a lot of success, but it was still fun. I was 21 at that point in time. But over the span of the last 20 years is how long I spent in Silicon Valley. I luckily ended up, I think, having more successes than failures. And so interesting, when you zoom in on parts of your life, you could look like and feel like an abject failure. But when you zoom out and you start stitching it all together, when you have a little bit more perspective, maybe, it all kind of starts making sense. I was fairly early days at Salesforce. Then I went to Box and helped grow them through some hyper growth and took them public with the team there, which was great. Then I went to a really small company in Silicon Valley where I was CMO. That got acquired later. Then I was at LinkedIn for a little stint. I actually thought I was going to be at LinkedIn for quite a while because I loved the platform. I use it all the time. Like you said, Kimberly, that's how you and I met. Until I met a CEO named Adam Newman at WeWork, and he was very persuasive, and we can get to all of that in a moment. Ended up joining WeWork as the chief marketing officer there until it all came crashing down very publicly. Then I ended up becoming a CMO of a company called Matterport, also in California, and took them public in 2021. But with them, end of 2000, during COVID, I moved to Denmark with my family, my American wife and my son, who's also born abroad. So first year was tough coming here, I gotta say, because of COVID and it's just a transition and the time zone differences and so on. And working for a California-based company, when I'm based here in Denmark, was really tough. 9 hours of time difference, staying up till 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning most days was just tough. So I left, and then the last year and a half I've been doing advisory work with just fast growth companies in the US, England, Germany, Singapore, you name it, until about 3 months ago when I took a job as a chief business officer for a company here in Denmark. It's called LMS 365, and we are a learning platform that's focused on really unlocking the potential of every human on the planet. That's really focused, and we do that through a learning platform, a performance management platform, and an engagement platform. And we can get to all of that, but it feels like all of when I again look back on the arc of my career, all the roads have kind of led to here. I mean, for me, it's really about, at this point in my life, how do I bring success and joy and happiness to as many people as I can? A lot of it comes to joyful led growth. I've never used that word before, so kudos to you for coining it. But it instantly resonated with me because I think it's something I've been trying to live, at least for the last couple of decades. Because just like you both have shared, Lee and Lisa, we've all kind of been through the ringer in various ways and been in environments that have been great and probably in environments that have not been so great. And oftentimes it's actually from the ones that are not so great that you get that ultra clarity on what you want in your life and what you appreciate and so on. And it certainly came that way for me. Just to give an example, when I just contrast the two last jobs I was working at compared to, not talking about the one I'm at now, WeWork, came in, it was growing up and to the left, from $20 billion valuation to $47 billion. And then we were going to go to an IPO, and then it all came crashing down. It's very painful. But it was also really meaningful, and I really believed in the mission there, and I loved the people. And then I came to Matterport, and objectively very successful. We took the company public, and it was like a huge moment in my career and all those kind of things, being on NASDAQ and so on. But in the 2 years I was there, I never once met my team, because it was, of course, because of COVID, and it was all remote and so on. And I just look back and I reflect on, it was that moment, and it was like, even though one ended in disaster, it was actually really fun because we were like in it together and we were like working hard. But the other one, if I look back on the Matterport experience, I mean, I'm very proud of the work we did, but there wasn't many moments of like fun knowing that, or joy. I think, and again, it's not like I'm unique in that COVID was hard for many people, but it also crystallized for me what gives me joy and energy in life, which is why when I wanted to get back into it, which I did recently, was about finding a tribe where I could like share that energy and be together, not every day and not all the time, because I've always had global teams, but at least like part of the time. And I think joyful led growth is about realizing, adding on to Lee's definition, which I thought was perfect, also what gives you joy and energy, and how you contribute that back as well to the people around you in ways that make them better, happier, and more successful. So anyhow, thank you for having me here. I'm excited to dig into this topic. Yeah.
I love it. That's awesome. So why don't we kick things off with a poll question just to see how many people out there. Bob, do you want to throw up the first poll question? So for the companies that you're all working in, how familiar are you with this concept? And I'm going to actually not take credit for the joyful led growth thing, because I'm all about giving credit where credit's due. This is Scott Wilder. I had a conversation with them about this concept and everything, and he came up with this joyful led growth. And yes, I attached myself to it and have been hashtagging and trying to make little videos and get, as you guys all know, great marketing and stuff, right? We got to have our lexicon here. We got to have a way to communicate something that is going to be consistent there. So hopefully everyone can answer this question. Let's see. All right, cool. And I definitely want to get to some really, I always love these webinars for the conversation, but I want to make sure everyone can take away some very specific examples. But let's start with whose responsibility it is, if we can. What do you guys think in terms of like who's responsible?
Let me just share the poll results so you have an idea.
Sorry, Bob, go ahead.
Just we want to share the poll results just to see what you have, what you're, so kind of mixed between, general concept, they get it, and no familiar at all is pretty much what we're seeing. So
Got it.
Not surprising.
Interesting.
Okay. Go ahead, Kimberly.
Yeah, no. Thank you for sharing the, and I think it's really, I think everybody kind of knows what it
Yeah.
is, but it's like more defining it and putting together, right, the actual things that you need to do to build this culture is where I want to focus. So let's talk a little bit about whose responsibility it is to promote this, or who's responsible for this. And why don't we start with you, Robin, and we'll go back the other way to Lisa and then to Lee.
I think the easy answer is it's everyone's responsibility, but that's the easy answer. I think the truth, honestly, is it's a little deeper. Is that, of course, as you become more senior in an organization, you have to take more responsibility for it, because everyone pays so much attention to every little thing that you do, every interaction, every word that you say. So the way you show up really matters, and the way you lead and treat people really, really matters. I'll give an example. I was saying I was advising companies here over the last couple of years or so, and I ended up advising CEOs and CMOs and so on. And there was one person on a team that I was advising, and this person, he was kind of complaining and saying, "Oh, the CEO doesn't know what he's doing, and it's so tough, and so many people are frustrated, blah blah blah." And okay. And then I dug a little deeper and was speaking to other people, and everyone's like so excited by what the CEO is doing, and we love the new direction and the way everything's turning out and so on. And so I came back to this person who was complaining a lot, and I said, you're putting out an energy in the world that's basically, you get reflected back. Anything you put out there, it gets reflected back. So right now you're showing up, you yourself are complaining. You think everything is hard. And when you say that to people, because people like to agree with, and so on, especially because you're a leader, what do you think gets reflected back to you? Right? The same energy that you're putting out there. Because when I talk to other leaders, and what they hear is completely the opposite. And the truth might be somewhere in the middle. That's also probably fair. But it doesn't change the fact that the world gets reflected back to you based on kind of what you put out there. And I think it's such a important thing to keep in mind. Of course, it's true at all levels, but it gets really, really true. I think the more senior you become, the energy you put out there, the joy, the purpose, the mission, the way you kind of conduct yourself really gets reflected back to you. So of course, if you show up and everything's tough and sucks and you complain, I'm sure that's what you feel that everybody else around you feels as well. That's not joy, right? And so the opposite is, of course, also true. If you show up with enthusiasm, motivation, energy every day, not only does that get reflected back to you, but it also lifts everybody up around you. Like a rising tide lifts all boats. And we know this is not just like makes people feel warm. And plus, we know from all the data out there, it shows that engaged employees, motivated employees end up doing better work. Their companies are more profitable. They contribute more innovative ideas if there's psychological safety, if they're motivated and having fun and all these kinds of things. So it's not just about, doing it for, let's say, shits and giggles, as we like to say, but it's actually doing it because there's a real good business reason for it as well. So the equation for me is very, really simple. We need businesses to be successful, and we need humans to be successful. You can't have one be successful, I think, without the other. Sure, you can have a business that's growing like crazy, and if the people are miserable, you can still do that short term, but I can guarantee you the moment something better comes along, those people are out of there. And vice versa is true as well. So you can have an environment where the business is stagnating, but everyone's kind of like having fun and playing ping pong and just kind of like not really doing the work. That's not success either. The only way is if you create an environment where people are motivated, successful, growing, developing, learning, and so on, which you might wrap up into being joy. That's success, because that also then has a positive business outcome.
Yeah, I love it. And Lisa, that's a great transition. I was really hoping we're going to get a little bit more into some metrics, because we all know that's really important. And I know, Lisa, you have a ton of them with the work that you're doing at Arbinger Institute, but we're going to stick. And I love the answer, Robin, really. But who do you think is ultimately responsible for this, to just add on to some of the things Robin's talking about?
Yeah, I mean, Robin's answer is, I feel like, much more eloquently spoken and beautiful than stats, but data also helps, I think, drive it home. And some of the things that we do here is research on these very topics, right? And I mean, this is not, I'm sure, new to anybody, but 70% of the reason why people leave companies is their manager, it's their leader, it's you can have teams within an organization even that are working really well, but when you've got a toxic leader, and I love what you're saying too, just how that's, that's the energy that you're putting out there, and that's going to be what's reflected back. And most likely there's a lot more going on in that team that's creating the toxic culture. Then it starts to spiral. And so, we know it needs to start at the top. You can make change from a groundswell up, but it is so much harder and more exhausting. And most people won't. They're going to leave. They know it's not a right fit for them. They don't feel like they're in the right place. It's not worth the effort and energy to do that. And they'll find someplace else where they, feel like they're a better fit. And so it needs to start from the top.
Love it. Lee.
Well, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here in this place, but yeah, I echo exactly what both Robin and Lisa shared, which is it is everybody's responsibility, but at the end of the day, leaders and managers play a really pivotal role in cultivating a joyful work environment. And people look up to their managers and their how they show up at the end of the day. That will trickle down. I know one of your original questions is sharing a bit about leaders and managers' responsibility to ensure there's joy in work. And I've kind of put together my 7 pillars of where I think that that responsibility lies. And I think creating a safe work environment. So we've been using the word toxic, but leaders and managers have a primary responsibility to establish a work culture where employees feel safe to express themselves, their opinions, their experiments and their failures, and hopefully enabling a culture of creativity that reduces fear, promotes genuine joy. Another pillar is just being servant leaders. I see such a difference between the word leader and manager, and this this reality that being a leader is you're leading your team, your team's satisfaction, not to a point where it's burdening, but does depend on you as a manager, as a leader. And I think that the idea of leadership has really evolved from a top-down approach to one where leaders really serve their team. And servant leadership is about putting the needs of your team above your own and ensuring that they have the right resources, the right training, the right emotional support to succeed by just being advocates of their team and their leaders. Building trust and cultivating an environment where joy can really thrive. I have a few others, but I won't dive into each one of them, encouraging autonomy and open communication and having peer-to-peer support. Taking ownership is a really big one where, leaders can create an environment conducive to joy, and it's up to each individual to actively engage with it. And that individual seeking out, really backing off of what Robin said. But this includes seeking out opportunities for growth and not just complaining, and just promoting positivity.
And in the spirit of transparency, if I may just add because again, I think we learn a lot from our failures, more so the shitty environments we've been in. So in the last 10 years, not my current company, but in the last 10 years, I was working at a company as a CMO, and there was one person on the team, a woman. She was really good at what she did, but she was pretty toxic, to use your words, Lee, right? So, and I've been thinking a lot about the notion of leadership lately, and she was really damaging for the team. I mean, I kept hearing things about her from other members, and honestly, and I never did anything about it. I tried to coach it a little bit. I was a little soft about it and so on. And it's one of those things when I look back, I'm like, I kind of failed as a leader, because it's my job to make sure that there's an environment where people feel joyful, right, coming to work every day. And the moment that you as a leader is not enabling that, then you're failing because you're too maybe chicken to actually make the hard decisions, the hard call. I should have sat down and said, either change or you're out, right? And I just never had the courage, or kind of felt because everything was moving so fast, and it is when you're in startup mode and growth and so on. But it's no excuse, really. I mean, it's you got to take those moves, because everyone looks to you or your behavior. And if you don't actually do anything about it, then you're kind of implicitly also okaying that behavior as well. And it just snuffs out the joy and becomes the soul crushing environment for everyone, right? So, yeah.
Yep. Well, I'll just say, I just wrote this blog, Culture Eats Strategy for Breakfast. And it's not my phrase, that's a Peter Drucker quote, but I even experience it where I am today. I mean, you can hire the best people, you can have the most talent, you can, you know, have a great strategic initiatives and be doing all the right things, like on paper, it sounds really good. But if you don't have the culture where people are receptive to new ideas, where they're willing to put aside what they're already doing to work with you on that, it doesn't work. And, you know, we touched on this a little bit too, but more than like all hands meetings or different like things like that, that you can, doesn't matter how many times I presented these ideas. I have to build the relationships with people. I have to help them see their part in it. I have to see my part in how I'm disrupting their vision of what they should be doing. And those are we talk a lot about mindset at Arbinger, understanding and having an outward mindset, seeing other people as people who matter as much as I do, showing up in a way where I'm alive to the fact that it's not just the Lisa show. You know, that's the kind of culture that needs to get created before people are going to want to do what I want them to do, you know, or want to be a part of the initiative that we're, you know, embarking on. So, you know, it's a struggle, but like you said, Robin, I mean, I've been in this situation so many times. You're like, oh, that person, they're so toxic, they're irrelevant to me. Like, I'm just going to put my blinders on and forget about it. And like, just don't even talk to them because they don't, but it always comes back to bite you if you don't take the time to figure it out. So, yeah.
You know, and I heard, and it's funny because I'm encountering this all the time. It's fun that I've started this JLG thing because I got people coming out of everywhere wanting to have lunch, and I put together this marketing mavens thing. Like, everyone wants to get together, and it's like this whole, like, I want to talk to somebody about this. So it's been a lot of fun. It's also been a little discouraging hearing people's like, you know, this like, and I'm applying for work right now. So it's like, I'm talking to my friends that are like, you know what, the company culture is really great, but you don't want to work for that person. Nobody, you know, they burned through 3 people in the last year, but they're so good at what they're doing. They're getting the results and stuff. So I'm not going to refer you in, but I'm hearing this all the time, you guys. And like, I, you know, was thinking about working for an old company where they're like, you know, the culture's not what it was when you were here 15 years ago. You know, it's a grind culture now. And so I'm getting a little disheartened, and I'm seeing a disconnect between everyone talking about the importance of joy and everything, and customer first, and then actions on the other side, like really living it, really getting rid of those toxic managers. So I love that you brought that up, Robin. Well, Bob, I know we've got
let me just add something to this. This is kind of thing, because I hear this all the time, and it kind of pisses me off. I don't get pissed off easily because as you know from my LinkedIn profile, I'm a very happy person, because I feel like it's such an honor and a privilege to be a leader. It really is. I mean, so many people aspire to be, and your job is to create an environment where people can show up every day to do the best work of their life, to nurture them, to nurture their soul, to give them opportunity to shine, to pave the way for them, and of course also coach them along the way. And when people aren't doing that, to your point, Kimberly, it's just like, God, what you're failing all of us leaders, right? Like, you're like neglecting the duty that has been bestowed upon you, which is such an honor for you to have. So anyway, this really riles me up. I'll probably post some more about this, but thanks for sharing.
You know what? If we can get a couple of posts from you guys, because you got so inspired from the conversation, then my job here is done. All right. So Bob, I know we've got, I'm thinking we do the next 2 poll questions just back to back. Because we should have done the one earlier about if you could put the one up about how your actual company's doing in terms of joy. But then I'm going to do back, and we can talk about the results, because the one right after that is whose responsibility. So I want to keep this.
I can do the whose responsibility now.
Oh, can you put that one up now? Let's just do that one.
Yeah.
I don't think the other one's
Yeah.
as
So one
important.
thing,
So
what you guys all said was really interesting in how it flows down. And what it also does is flows down not only to the employees, but to the customers, and the customers feel it. And when I'm working with a company and I'm getting a great experience with the rep on the other side, I know they're getting taken care of and they're joy, and it really flows outside into revenue ideally.
that's a great point, Bob. And I just want to follow up because that is the simplicity that I try, like I feel everything gets so complex. And it's like, if you take care of your employees and they feel really excited about what they're doing, they're passing that on to the customer. It's really that simple in terms of taking care of the customers. Take care of your people, make sure they're stoked and providing that great experience to the customer. So I love that. Okay.
Richard Branson, he said, and he's one of the iconic CEOs of our time, clients do not come first, employees come first. If you take care of your employees, they will take care of your clients. And it's so obvious, but who will argue with him? I mean, it's like, I have it right in front of me actually, because I'm working on a keynote that I'm working on. So I have to quote here, but I love it because it says it all, like what you just said, Kimberly and Bob. So great.
It just seems some of this stuff seems so no-brainer. And I guess if you are that kind of a person that's always been trying to build a great culture and your strengths, you don't recognize that they're strengths because they're just who you are. It's just a natural thing. But so how do we do with the poll results?
Well, pretty much similar to what you all said. I mean, it flows from the top for sure, but it's everybody's responsibility, and that I think that's it's nice.
I do think the CEO thing is very, very important though, because ultimately, even at the CMO level and the leader level, you get so far, right? You get so far. But if that CEO doesn't fundamentally believe in this concept of joyful led growth, there's really only so much that you're going to be able to do, right? Okay. All right, so let's jump into some of the numbers. We all know this is really important. Like you can go into your CEO, right, and start talking about the importance of this hypothetically, but being able to demonstrate the impact on the business. How do you measure joy? And then how do you communicate that to a board or executive leadership to say, hey, really making an investment here is worth it because it's going to have a business impact. Maybe Lisa, do you want to start with this one? Because, obviously the work you're doing, I bet you've got some good ways for people to measure and talk about ROI and investing in, consulting or, other investments in this.
Yeah, I actually should probably have this right in front of my face, but I don't. But we did do a research report earlier this year on the impact of culture and how that then drives high performing teams. So how culture and performance are correlated. And we definitely saw in the data that companies that are focusing on culture and successful cultures, like I just pulled up one thing here, is like 47% more likely to achieve their revenue numbers, things like that. But again, I don't think it's intuitive. And a lot of people see culture as like a soft metric or thing in their organization. And that's part of, the work we're doing is trying to like connect the two together. And back to that whole concept of, you can have the best strategy, you can have the best people, you can have the best talent. For example, one of our customers here is NASA. And there's a public case study out there about this, that they have the most brilliant minds. Their problem to achieve the outcomes of getting their next mission going have nothing to do with the capability and everything to do with people butting heads and getting in each other's way and not working together, not creating a collaborative culture. And so, there's so many examples of this out there. There's so much data out there. It's still mind-boggling to me, how people just don't get it. I just don't get it. Another thing we look at too is even just your ability to innovate as an organization, and back to these concepts of like psychological safety and feeling like you can speak up feeling like you can say, you know, I don't think that's the best idea in a room without being criticized, shut down, you know, put in a corner or seen as the person who's gonna be the naysayer, but actually like invited to speak your mind. You know, when people quit and HR goes and talks to them and they rattle off 50 different things that would have made a difference, like they know, people know you're there, you're in it. Are you creating an environment where people are actually going to speak up and help you make your company better and successful while they're there? Or are they going to take it out the door with them and to someplace else? And so I think those are the kinds of things that we have data on. I'll actually drop a link to this report if it's helpful to people, because I think sometimes it's like taking this to your leadership team and saying, here are some reasons why I think we should really invest in our culture, is much more impactful than anything you can say. So
love it. And I'm
I'll stop
loving, I gotta say, I'm loving the engagement in the chat and people sharing some numbers and, you know, and talking in the chat. So thank you for the contributions over there. Lee, can you tell us a little bit? I mean, obviously, you know, with your business, you're needing to work with people on, right? Continuing to invest in your employees having fun. You know, is it so important for them to have a measurement, or, you know, I mean, just talk a little bit about what you're seeing.
Totally. And I'm going to answer the question, but I do think maybe whether it's today or a different time, I think the reality is like relationships are hard. People are complex. Like, you know, we have challenges with our significant others and we chose them. We have challenges with our kids or with our parents. Like relationships are just tough. And with work, it's the people that you're almost like forced to work with. I mean, as a founder, I get to pick a bit more, but you know, and as soon as you're an employee, you're forced to work with those people, that family, those friends that you're kind of stuck with during a very big portion of your waking hours. So it's also a tough puzzle to crack. I know obviously we're saying how like making it seem so easy, but the reality is that it's tough. And yeah, so regarding measuring joy, I think measuring like any other intangible qualities, it can be challenging, but with the right metrics and tools, organizations can start to gain better insights into the different like levels of joy in the workplace. And as I believe Bob brought up, the ripple effect on customers and on partners. So one of them, for example, is just like employee surveys and feedback. And I'm always just like amazed how little companies do this, like just the basics, asking people. And there's 3 different levels. So pulse surveys are usually really quick. Things that you can just kind of get a little pulse check on. Engagement surveys, which is much more structured, it's longer, something that usually happens about twice a year. And then feedback boxes, something that's like evergreen, just you put it up and you repeat yourself, hey, if you have any concerns, if you have any feedback, put in, we have like an HR suggestion box, and it's always there to accept that feedback. Looking at turnover rates and retention, how long are your employees staying there? How quick are they leaving? Doing exit interviews to see why they left. Obviously productivity metrics. So I saw a few folks in the chat talking about, you know, how often salespeople hit their quota, but productivity is usually a good indicator for engagement and employee satisfaction. There's been a lot of studies on absenteeism and mental health days, like how often are people sick, or how often are they showing indications of burnout? That's important to measure. NPS, as Bob mentioned, like customer satisfaction, loyalty, in general customer surveys. We're very big on 300-degree performance reviews. So top down, side to side, bottom up. You really want to be able to get as much information from all perspectives. Participation in voluntary activities like confetti, right? We often encourage our customers, like, to not make these events mandatory. And on times you also want to make those events mandatory, and different different levels of engagement is going to give you different responses. Like, you should reach for 50 to 75% participation rate for your culture activities, but if 5 or 10% of your company is showing up, that's probably not a great indicator that they're enjoying who they're working with. Yeah, those are some of the ways that we can make things a little bit more measurable.
Great answer. Thanks, Lee. Robin, it's hard to follow that. They came up with a pretty good list.
I know. I've been digging into this recently as well. So there's so much like good stuff in what you shared, both of you, and yeah, because I'm working on this, I was saying this keynote around this very topic, and just like when you unearth some of the stats, and it sounds like Lisa has a whole like slew of them. It's kind of shocking. I mean, one that just I saw this recently. 2 out of 3 employees want to quit their jobs, right? And then there was one from Josh Burson, I think this week, he said, well, it's like 72% of people want to quit their jobs, and he's kind of a legend in the industry. And so it's kind of like, I think, criminal that we're sitting in this gold mine of potential just waiting to be unlocked, just waiting to be nurtured and given the opportunity, given the right environment to be happy and motivated and so on. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes you do have to leave, of course, and go somewhere else. But a lot of times it is due to all the factors, I think, that we've talked about. Because the other thing on the flip side on the stats, once you do solve that, I have a statistic here, with the data point that says, and organizations with highly engaged employees have a 21% higher increase in profitability. That's from Gallup. There's another one here that says, it's really interesting. There's also actually Gallup that says engaged employees are 59% more likely to contribute innovative ideas. So, of course, if you're going to solve some of the gnarly challenges that every business has, you need the best ideas in the room. And if you're not providing an environment, to Lisa's point, where that can happen, how do you think you're ever going to either solve those challenges or even grow, right? So, again, I think it's up to managers, leaders, and so on to figure out ways to solve this. One of the things that I've been doing in the last couple of years, I've actually created a course on how to create high-performing and highly engaged teams. And I go around and I do this either half day or full day workshop because I think it's super fun. And one of the things that I've kind of come up with, I shared here, is kind of this new formula for how do you actually drive success and accountability. And I call it input plus output equals outcome. And the reason I've kind of come up with this is because I think we've traditionally for too long lived in a world that only measures outcome. And it's like outcome at all costs. And so it doesn't really matter how you get there, kind of like the supporting the jerks or toxic behavior or bad behavior by companies, whatever it is. It's like, as long as the results are there, we'll kind of neglect a lot. And I just think it's not the world I want to live in. I don't feel like it's the world that the next generation of workers really want to live in either. I think it's much more around input plus output equals outcome. What I mean is input are the things that you put into work every single day, the values that you set as a company, the mindset that you have, the way you show up, the energy and enthusiasm you put into something, the work you put into something. Honestly, I think you control this 100%. Doesn't mean it's easy. To Lee's point, humans are complex. And I have a 17-year-old son. Everyone who knows, if you have a teenager, if he's an ass in the morning, it's like colors. It doesn't change the fact that when I show up to work, I control the way that I show up every day, right? Despite all the external circumstances that are around me, it makes it more complex, but I still think it's in my control. I also think output, we control the output, meaning the marketing campaign we put out there, the HR policy, the sales training we do, we control that too. We can look at it and say, are we proud of this? Are we proud of this product that we're launching, this campaign, and we've done everything we can. It's beautiful. We stand by it and so on. I think we control that 100% too. But we do not control the outcome 100%. We can influence it. And of course, the better input and output you have, the more likely you are to hit your outcome. So for example, if your goal is to hit 100 million in sales next year, if you're showing up with crappy input and crappy outputs, you're never going to hit it. So of course, the input and the output matters a lot. And my point with this whole formula is I would love to see a world where people get rewarded for the input and the output as well, not just the outcome. The way that you show up with it, we should reward that. So the example is, if you have an employee who shows up every day and they give it their all, and they're so excited, people love working with them, and they still don't hit their outcome, is that a failure? Versus the employee who then shows up, and is toxic to everyone, like we talked about, and just kind of leaves a wake of destruction behind them, but crushes their number all the time. What would you rather have? And if we keep supporting that one, I feel like we're supporting the wrong behavior, right? And in the world that I think or the environment that creates a motivation for people to show up, because of course it has this side effect on everybody around them. You know, if that continues to have, like we talked about, then everyone just gets demotivated over time. And to be clear, I don't think it's either or. I think you still have to reward outcome. I mean, it's not an abdication of not having outcome focused goals. I'm just saying you should also reward the inputs and the outputs that go into actually getting to the right outcomes.
Yeah, Robin, it's so interesting you say all that. At Arbinger, we have a tool that we call the 3A plus, and
Interesting.
it's capability, impact, and effort are the three categories. And first of all, I mean, this is part of how we help companies transform. It starts with your mindset, is how you're showing up. And you might have a great output capability, you're good at what you're doing, and you're maybe even achieving your results. But if the impact on others is so negative that it's hurting the company in the process. So the 3 is your 3, 2, or 1 is your capability. The impact is an A, B, or C. And then the effort is the third category. Are you giving necessary attention to the right things? Yes or no? So it's like, you can be a 3, but you can be a C. And if you're a 3C, it doesn't matter that you're a 3. You know, we're looking for 3A plus. And, you know, if you're a B, and then the other part of this is that it's your responsibility to be accountable, to go out and ask others. And we have other tools for this, right? Like, what is my impact on you? How are things going? And be accountable to yourself and the others around you, instead of, and this is back to like, who is really responsible? But if a leader creates a culture where they expect their employees to be accountable instead of holding them accountable, and gives them the tools and the space to go and figure out their impact on others, they've now created an environment where everyone is taking responsibility for their own impact and how it's all coming together. So I mean, again, part of why I made this transition too, but I love what you're saying. I think we're all kind of on the same page here. It's just a matter of how you go about it. And just so happens that I decided to go someplace that we actually do these things, right? Because I was so passionate about wanting to see these kinds of changes happening.
You gotta share this.
Yeah,
This formula is amazing. I can't remember it all. I need to like write it down, but it sounds like very much aligned, because it also comes back to how many of you have worked in companies where there's all these values on the wall, and transparency and honesty, and we support each other and all this stuff. And then there's really no repercussion if you live it or don't live it. And this is what I'm saying. Like, this is where we need to figure out ways to reward that kind of behavior, or else it's just posters on the wall. And it's like, yeah, but at the end, it's only the outcome. It's only the growth at all costs that matter. It doesn't matter how, well, what about these values that we talk about? Then it just will become a dishonest organization. I feel like, again, when I speak to younger people, and I've been doing this for a while, they don't want that. They want the organization that values the honesty, the openness, the integrity, and transparency around all this stuff. So, you know, we have work to do, people.
Yeah, and I see there's a question in here, like, how do you have a happy sales culture if you're missing your number?
Great question.
And look, it's a great question, right? And back to this whole idea of a 3A plus, is like, you need to look at what your part in that is. And let's say you're in sales and you're like, I don't have enough pipeline. I'm doing everything I think I can to build that pipeline. Who are your partners? Who are the people that you can work cross-functionally with in marketing, maybe in customer success, to help you get there? Build the relationship, starting with your mindset. If you're going in saying, you need to create pipeline for me, or else I'm going to lose my job, probably not going to work so well. But if you're coming in saying, help me help the organization achieve their objectives, how can we work together on this? it's just a completely different approach to the same problem. I'm not saying it's going to work every time, but I do think it makes quite a difference, even on, your day to day, like back to your being reflected on what you're bringing to the table, and you're going to have a much better experience, and so will the people around you. So at least you all go down together if you, if you go down. So.
Well, it's a great question, Michael. I totally agree. But it's also, just to be clear, what I was saying is not an application about having outcome focused goals. If you miss your outcome, it's shitty for everyone. I mean, it's tough, right? I mean, it has ramifications. All I'm saying is, of course, the better input and output you have, meaning like if you show up every day and you work your ass off and you have conviction around what you do, you motivate the people around you, to your point, Lisa, and you collaborative and a good team member and so on, you have a better shot of hitting your number than if you don't. And the same if you put out, you have a great pitch deck and your sales campaign is on point and so on, but there's still lots of things in this equation that you can't control. What if a stronger competitor comes in? What if the market change? I mean, it's just, there's so many factors. The point I was also just trying to make is you should absolutely measure outcome. It's super important, but there are many things that help affect the outcome. And I feel like we don't measure that as a team, or we don't value that enough.
And I have to say, I love this conversation so much. And I've been in sales. The one thing, no matter what department I was in, I never stayed in my swim lane. And I've always been just wildly successful at revenue gen, whatever. And honestly, I attribute this 100% that, and everyone says this, Kimberly, you're just so transparent. You're like, I remember at Adobe, everyone's thinking it, and you'll say it. Now, I've had to work over the years to, right? You got it. There's a way to deliver it, adjusting your communication style to, right? Engineers. I mean, this has all been stuff that I've learned. But fundamentally, if you really are going in and you really care about those customers and you really care about your colleagues, I love what you said, Lisa. I would never say, this is your fault, give me more pipeline. That is the mantra. If you sit down, and people want to buy from people that they like, they want to work on teams with people that they like. So start with being likable. Just start there. It's really not that hard, right? Anyway, the one thing I wanted to end, I cannot believe we're like literally at 10:53. This has been so much fun. But the one thing on this whole JLG thing, and I shared that deck with you guys, I've been forced to kind of start putting these things. It sounds like you've all done this, Lee. You've got your 7 pillars, right? Robin, you're working on your keynotes. I'm going to encourage everyone to follow you guys on LinkedIn and for you guys to be sharing that stuff out there so people can get more of this. But I had to put together these things in all these companies that I would get into these companies, especially the smaller ones, and like baseline things. Having org charts, knowing where people fit in, having all hands meetings where the CEO is sharing a vision, having defined goals that's written somewhere that everyone can see. Like these things, because I came from Adobe, I just took for granted that were like no-brainer things. So I've kind of started putting my little list of things that I think are kind of critical from a foundational standpoint, very tactical, but that you really got to have as just a starting point. So I think we've got, well, let's start first with you guys offering up, just think about those simple, tactical things that you just have to have for somebody coming in. Well, and everybody else could be answering this question. We'll start with you, Robin, if we can this time, and we'll go back the other way on just those. Give me just, the top like 3, 4, 5 things that you just really got to have foundationally for somebody coming into an organization to kind of kick, that's going to be critical for people. And while everyone's answering the questions, I just came up with this list of things, all hands, and Lee, you'll like the team building thing. But yeah, I'd love to hear your, you got to have this. Sure. I come into a company and you're like, what? We don't have this. We got to have this.
Well, I think of it this way. The first thing I always try to do coming into a company, I think it's so important for people, is to provide clarity. People, of course, like good news. They don't like bad news, but they really hate uncertainty, right? That's usually like it's not easy being joyful or successful when there's a lot of uncertainty. The first thing I think you have to do is provide clarity. So what you've done, Kimberly, I think is awesome. Clarity on org charts, clarity on goals, and all these things. Once you have clarity, then it's much easier to know what you're aiming for. That's the first thing. The second thing is then you give people a lane to swim in and say, this is the goal. This is our North Star. Here's how we're going to get there. And here's your role in actually making that happen. Because I think at the end of the day, there's a lot that goes into motivation and joy and happiness at work. I really think it comes down to two main things. One is, do you believe in the mission and do you have clarity? Well, first, do you have clarity around the mission and do you believe in that mission? That's number one. And two, are you showing up every day feeling like you're making a difference towards achieving that mission? Then you can deal with crappy days and quarters that don't go so well, because if you continue going that. But when you don't have those first two, it's really hard. We've all been there. I mean, the worst for me is when I get to Friday night and I'm just like kind of so spent because it's been such a busy week. I was just working my ass off, but I look back, I'm like, I don't really know if I achieved anything of value. It just felt like I was just doing busy work for busy work. And it was just kind of like a wasted week. I didn't make progress towards any of my goals. It was just kind of like fighting fires. And so I think if you have clarity and certainty around your goals and you believe in them, certainly, and you feel like you're making a difference every single day, every week, every month, I think that brings a lot of joy and happiness. So I would start there.
Lee.
Yeah, I think when joy and happiness at work, I think is remembering that your employees aren't just like tools for your business, but they're actual individuals. And I've always liked to say that, like, you know, it's not just B2B or B2C, but it's H to H, it's human to human work. And while at work, I think it's a little dangerous to use the word family, because you can't lay off your family, you can't fire your family, they're always going to be there. But you are a professional sports team, and if that's an analogy that helps, then you know you guys got to be the best quarterback. You guys got to communicate better. You have to build that camaraderie, and when you look at a championship winning team and you say, what got you here? They often say it was the chemistry of the team. There was just a really good chemistry. So work on that chemistry together. It takes
Love
time.
it. Lisa, bring us home.
It's hard to top any of this. I know can reiterate it in my own words and just double down on, you know, human to human or people to people, but the things that have made the biggest difference, not only in my week and looking if I've done something that's actually matters, but even in the success, you know, in my career. And how do you define that, right? But for me, I feel like I am contributing, but I also can tell when I've made a difference, I've helped someone through something. And when I can tell someone's struggling with something and we get there together, oh my gosh, it's just so much more enjoyable and meaningful than doing it by myself. So I've just really hit the pause button a couple of years ago and said, none of this matters to me if I'm in it alone. And how am I going to do this in a way that is true to my soul and feels good and like I'm actually making a difference in other people's lives at the same time? And so yeah. And I'll just say I saw Michael King's on here. He actually got me my first CMO job that I left for all those reasons. So I just have to laugh because, again, it's like, it's great to be in the role, but if you're not in an environment where you really feel like you can thrive and help others thrive, it's pretty exhausting and feels like a waste. So
You're one of my favorite things I heard you say, Lisa, was you told a story about how you went in, you had a CEO and you went in and you said, look, I got this problem. And they said, you know, all you bring is, you know, don't come to me with a problem until you have a solution, and how much it would mean to you to sit down. You were looking to say, I have this problem, but I need input. I need help, right? You're asking for help and then you're being, you know, slammed for asking for that help. So I think, you know, like I'm going to encourage everyone to keep helping, to keep thinking about that. I really,
and look, like, that's so funny you bring that. That wasn't what I thought you were going to say. But I mean, as leaders, I think we typically go in with a solution, right? Because we want to have the answers. And that was a pivotal moment for me to come to the conclusion that I don't have to have all the answers. And I actually want to work someplace where I can brainstorm with my peers and not feel like I'm a fool for not knowing everything. So glad you bring that up.
Ask for help, collaborate, like so many great things. I'm sure
Yeah.
Bob will put together some like key bullet points and send us out. I'm sure more people are going to be watching this on demand. So I just want to thank you guys. I just feel very grateful to have had this hour with you guys. It was just really awesome. And anything to add, Bob?
No, it was really wonderful. Good job, everybody. I mean, one of the things, and we can talk another time, the whole causality thing, going back to one of the questions about, people not meeting their numbers. Is it because they're not happy, or is it not happy because they're not meeting their numbers?
Meet their numbers.
So that's
So
another
be
thing.
happy. Go ahead, Lee.
I was just saying, maybe that leaves us a good part two.
There you go. Stay tuned.
All right, you guys be joyful.
Yeah.
Have a great rest of your
See ya.
week and weekend, and we'll see you
See ya.
next time.
This was great.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
all.
It's great. Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.